Kubayi, the Minister of Human Settlements, and ANC NEC member Mmamoloko Kubayi is currently vying for the ANC's deputy presidency.
Yeah, she sat down with SABC News reporter Natasha Piri ahead of the party's elective conference that's taking place just next month.
Well, a very good morning to you and, of course, to our SABC viewers. As the SABC politics team, we've started a range of interviews, interviewing various candidates who have been endorsed and those who are vying for the ANC top 6 position. And this is ahead of the elective conference in December. Of course, you would have seen my various colleagues interviewing the likes of Lindiwe Sisulu, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, the likes of Malusi Gigaba, Phumulo Masualle, Dunsentule. And today I'm joined by the Minister of Human Settlements, Mmamoloko Kubayi. Of course, she's cut her teeth into politics at a very young age, a very learned woman. She served in 5 ministries, namely the energy, communications, science and technology, tourism, and of course now she is the Minister of Human Settlements. Minister, thank you so much for joining us on SABC News.
Thank you. Good morning to you and your viewers.
Just to jump straight to the point, could I be possibly talking to the next deputy president of the ANC?
Let's hope so.
And I think just earlier on this year, in August, your own branch endorsed you. But I just engaging with you back then, we asked you, and I'm going to ask you again, what attributes would you bring? And, what do you think would make you a great deputy president of the ANC? Why should branches elect you?
Look, I think let me first say I'm truly humbled as we coming closer to the close of nomination across the country. Quite a number of branches, individuals would send to those who have my WhatsApp, would send WhatsApp to say we've nominated you in our branch. Others would actually, send their emails, call on my Facebook, all my social media platforms, and indicating that they support and they wish I can make it in December. That for me, it's a victory that we have reached this stage. We've traveled so far, and I'm truly humbled by the support. It's quite overwhelming, even in corners that I didn't know. Individuals who say, we've never met you, we've never talked to you, they'll send in Facebook to say, but we believe in you. And I think there are several issues that as well reflecting on what people give as feedback. One of them, it would be the issue of a child of the ANC, obviously. They see a person who is committed to the organization, being willing to work in the organization, and you'd understand because part of the issue as well, I've been an organizer in the ANC. So working without expecting anything, organizers in the ANC, you go sent to a province to go to work, mobilization, and you don't get paid. So it's what we come from. But again, the issue of decisiveness, quite a number of people, some say I'm firm, others can take it to a point saying, no, you're a bit stubborn. But because when I set an objective, I want to see it. Determined to see the results. And part of the issue here is about wanting to see a change in the ANC. So that is as well what people talk about, the renewal. But they don't see just the person who speaks about renewal, but tries her level best to do. And I think I'm imperfect. I always say, I see Mam Winnie because I love her a lot because she modifies what imperfectionist, but a resolute leader is. The issue of being committed to the organization and to the cause, but more around the interests of the people. Being able to say, if you are given a responsibility, I try my level best to do my best. Get into the communities, understand, empathize with them, but work and show, believe, so that they believe that government cares. Because it's not about us sitting in boardrooms and also saying this is what we can do for the people, but being there, getting feedback and working with them to find lasting solutions. I think it's part of the issue. It's what the attributes of the ANC is about. The issue of excellence, I believe in excellence. There's times where people sometimes associate ANC with non-educated people who are not competent. I take offense, honestly, extreme. I think if there's anything that irritates me, it's when I hear a person clubbing to say, no, members of the ANC are uneducated. No, members of the ANC, are incompetent. And
but that was what is being portrayed within the party by some of your members.
Look, I think it's an unfair because if you are to find those who are incompetent, surely you can find those who are competent. If you are to find somebody who is uneducated, surely you can find those. And I think majority of us, as a younger generation especially, but some of the older people, have gone to school. I mean, quite a number. I was looking at the profile of those who are contesting. Quite a number. It's masters degrees. Obviously, I'm a PhD candidate. Hopefully, very soon I'll be called Dr. Kubayi. It's what I'm looking forward to. But it's not even only about me. I look back in terms of my journey of education. A child who's been a child of a domestic worker, did my matric staying in an informal settlement, as a teenage who had a child, teenage mother, and to have achieved where I am in terms of education. And I do believe, that's why I advocate for education, especially for young girls, that it is the key. It doesn't matter where you come from, it's a key that turns around. So I'm not a typical ANC member who comes from families with a surname that would have been given. I'm not a positions or even, roles, because it's easier when you have the families is known. You'll have to make, no one knows a Kubayi in politics. So when they start and say Kubayi, they're talking about Mmamoloko majority of the time in this politics. So it's those things that brings a change. It changes the landscape of what the ANC is known about. Many people have said, no, the exile list, I was not in exile, I was young. We are a generation, a younger generation that says we are here, we are competent, dedicated, ethical leadership, and sometimes people think that it's automatic. It's a conscious decision that you take to remain ethical, to resist temptations, and that's why society, and for me, it's that issue that as the ANC, we need to start showing that we do value ethical leadership, so that society can believe us more. Because the more they see that we don't recognize those ethics are stronger and higher, then they will think that no, this one just wants those who are corrupt, who do not have ethical and moral standing in society. And for me, I always say it's no longer about legality, it's about ethical standard. If I stand here as a leader, I must be able to say, this is what I bring to the table. An ethical leader who cares about society, who cares about the organization, but wants to see the organization prosper and in the interest of broader society.
And we're going to get to that point of ethical leadership, but I'm so glad that you mentioned, the fact that you've looked at the profile of the various candidates of the ANC. I mean, looking at the position of deputy president, you're up against people who are seasoned within the ANC. You yourself are. Like I said in the intro, you've cut your teeth into politics at a very young age, but you're up against the likes of Paul Mashadile. And he has been endorsed by 4 provinces. I mean, what do you think your chances are?
This is a conference of branch delegates. I have equal chance like him, if not more, into the conference. Looking at the nomination, they are saying differently to what provinces have said. I mean, I look at my province alone. Nominations are not speaking directly to what the provinces are saying. And that's why I continue to say I'm humbled. In terms of credibility, judging me by my age, I think I have a good standing. Judging me for who I stand for and what I stand for, I think I am competent and I can be able to challenge it. I don't think I stand as a candidate that maybe it's not fit in that position. I think the difference between me and them is that they are men and I'm a woman.
You spoke earlier on of Renewal, and it just reminds me, in August when you were endorsing your branch in Soweto, you also spoke of renewal of the ANC. What is renewal to you, and what renewal are you talking about? Also, do you think that this conference is a watershed moment? Is it a do or die for the ANC?
Let me start with the latter part. I think all of us as members of the ANC must worry about the ANC, that the outcome of this conference, definitely I do believe that would be a signal to broader society of whether indeed what we said in 2019 when we delivered our manifesto, that we have learned from our past mistakes and we are on the course of changing as an organization, and therefore society must trust us. Because if we do not do that, if we ignore that, then oblivious of the issues that society are concerned about. society now have learned to pay attention to what happens in the ANC, not only during the time where we say we are going to elections. So you'd find that more conversations today are happening about the conference by even members of society who are not even members of the ANC, because they've learned to say those who get selected are likely to become our leaders in government. So yes, it is important, and we can't ignore the fact that people and the trend research would have shown that we've been declining over time in terms of percentage. Now, we've got to turn that number around. And for us to be able to turn it around, the ANC renewal is important. And this I say, one, in terms of renewal stands about us implementing what we have committed to. The issues which are non-negotiable in terms of standing against the issues of corruption. And that's why when we came out of NASREC, the resolution of implementation of the Integrity Commission, it was part of the renewal. We came from the diagnostic report that said these are the problem in the ANC. Society says you are generally a corrupt organization. We would want you to see yourself immuning yourself from individuals who have allegations. Two, that you need to stop focusing on yourself and the infighting. Try and make sure that you portray, you work for the society, and people must believe that you do so. That's why the Integrity Commission is important. The rule of step aside is very critical as well, as a sign of renewal. One, and I always hear my comrades talk about the issue of renewal. One, the issue of step aside. One, we're saying that if you are, for example, you appear on negative reporting that you have done this, you appear before the Integrity Commission and you explain. So you can be called or you can voluntarily go. And then they will determine whether indeed there is an issue. But the minute you are charged, NPA says you have a case to answer before either a magistrate or a judge. Definitely you have to step aside. And this, when the context of this was happening, it was the issue that let's take away the T-shirt of the ANC from courts. Because when people say ANC is corrupt, they are seeing these T-shirts. They are seeing the logo of the ANC worn in courts in support of those that are alleged to have wrongdoing. And I always say, if we look at the crimes of corruption, they are not victimless. And I'll take it from my portfolio. If money is stolen for building houses, it is widows, it is child-headed households, it's senior citizens who bear the brunt. It's vulnerable people in a community. These are victims of corruption crimes. And that's why, as an organization, if we indeed stand for the values of the organization, we stand for what the ANC has been founded for, we can never find ourselves associated with people who victimize those who are vulnerable, because that's the primary mandate why we exist.
But Minister, do you think that the step aside resolution is actually applied equally? You just listening to the various interviews that my colleagues have had with various candidates, some are of the view that that's not the case.
No, but somebody will have to say who is before court who hasn't stepped aside. I don't think there's none. That's why I differentiated between a person who appears before Integrity Commission. So if there's an allegation that I stole, and I say I haven't stolen, and NPA has not said that I have a case to answer, I don't step aside. And there are many of them. They have not stepped aside. They go to Integrity Commission, they explain. But the minute you appear before a magistrate you are asked whether you plead guilty or not, that's when you step aside. You step aside to focus on your matters in court so that you don't drag the organization with you. And that's where, and if you look at the step, and one of the things I keep on emphasizing is that some of our comrades, and I remember mentioning this during the policy conference, have not read the step aside rules. Because the step aside, some of the people are raising, which is genuine concern, that no, there are certain people who are charged for a long time, their cases are not concluded before court. The step aside rule says, if you are charged and you feel that the NPA, whoever, are taking long to conclude your matter, you go back to the organization to present the case, to say, I have stepped aside voluntarily. It's more than a year I've stepped aside, but my court is not concluded. I'm requesting the organization to review my matter so that I can be actively participating in the organization. The rules allows for that. And I keep on emphasizing, no one has tested that. So we can't say it doesn't work. And this caveat was put in as protecting those who'd say, what if I get charged and then it drags forever? And NPA, for example, people would argue that sometimes what happens is that they charge you and investigate later. So, and this is why this caveat was put in to protect even both the individual but also the organization.
Minister, you spoke about a critical issue there early on of implementation. You know, it's always said amongst yourselves as well. I think you also said this earlier on this year at the policy conference with Sakina, that the policies of the ANC are very good, but implementation is a problem. And what's worse is that you as ANC members, as NEC members, somewhat are seen to have failed to hold your deployees accountable. How will the ANC get past this?
Look, I don't think we have generally failed to hold deployees accountable. And I'll go back again. 20, and I think where the mistake that, or what we have not strengthened, we took a resolution to establish a monitoring and evaluation in Lutuli House. And I think that's where we've literally delayed in that. And obviously because of the issues around SGO, Stability Office, would have impacted on that. Because the intention of that was to be able to say to deployees, can you come and tell us this is what we have been able to do in terms of resolution? For example, I'm currently the chair of ETC starting early this year. And what we've been doing, we've been having areas of focus where we call the deployees to say, tell us in this area of work, how far are we with the resolution? We've also had a meeting, for example, we have regular meetings where we looked at all the resolutions. We asked them to update them. We check on the areas. For example, if you have not been able to implement this, what are the reasons? So that work happens, but I think it needs to happen stronger. The major issue, which I believe has been an impediment on implementation of resolution, is the capacity of the state, which now from government point of view, you'd have seen now recently with the cabinet decision to look at the tenures of DGs, to look at how do we professionalize public service in response to that challenge. Because because remember, as a political head, let's say human settlements, I do not get to be in the procurement space. I'm not supposed to. I can't be the implementer. So I rely on the public servants in my department to help me achieve the targets. Obviously, I'll give political direction, I'll do my own monitoring, I'll do my oversight, ensure that I crack the whip, I make sure things happen. But the overall, even if I can crack the whip, if there is no people who are competent, who have the right qualifications, I will not be able to achieve. And that's why this paying attention to the capacity of the state. And somebody might say to me, but you've taken so long to pay attention to it. We had capacity in the state over years. I think at the beginning of the years, many of us can attest the way excellent Director General, we had quite a number of them seasoned. People that over time have trained. I was even talking at some point to say, I remember there's a time where in government, for example, in Treasury, there would be people who are sent abroad, for example, to Harvard to do some studies, training, exposed to World Bank, come back so that they know different institutions. And we need to go back to that. That's why the National School of Government is important. You'd see the work that Professor Ncaweni is doing there, emphasizing training and capacity. For example, when I appointed all my boards, I took them through the School of Governance to be able to do what is expected of them as board members. And that's what we talk about in terms of capacity of the state. So that's where it varies in where we can. But let's take the ERRP. So ERRP is one economic reconstruction and recovery plan. It's one of the areas that I pride myself to say, as government in the economic cluster, we actually implemented almost about 80%. And that was one of the signs to say, when we are coordinated, we work better and we are focused, we are able to see the results. So the reforms that have been done and all that. And that's why the hope again is with the district development model to help us synchronize the work, coordinate better between the three spheres of government, but be able to have a focus and intervene in the areas of work.
Minister, you spoke of ethical leadership. I'm reminded of the former ANC President Thabo Mbeki speaking at the late Mamrita Nzanga's memorial earlier on this year. And he had said that, listen, it's not everybody in the ANC who's corrupt. You have those few bad apples or bad potatoes who are actually somewhat rotting the whole crop. What do you make of former ANC leaders criticizing the ANC out in public?
Look, there are two things for me. An ANC has been an organization that has never been stifling debates. We're an organization that is robust in engagement. And if you look at, for example, former presidents, I think for me the boundaries would be what they are saying is it in the interest of the ANC and general society. So there's a difference when a leader speaks because they are pained by seeing wrong things happening and therefore they want to see improvement. And a difference with a leader who perhaps would attack another. So when we as leaders, it's not only about former leaders, but also current leadership. When we have a public spat, it doesn't help the organization, but it destroys the organization. But if we are robust in our conversations, that shows society that this is not an ANC that one person decides and then everybody else agrees. So we're not an organization of a dictator. We're an organization that discussions happen robustly. But there are parameters, that's why we adopted as the ANC. For example, even one of the things that we had to adopt, and currently members of the ANC, I remember when we did feedback to regions after the 2021 elections, they were telling us to implement the social media policy. Because we've got that boundary to say these are the things that should be done and cannot be done in terms of social media by leaders. And actually, so it's one of those that it's very important to have a balance. You don't want an organization that stifles debate and suppresses views, which would help it's the same organization and society. So that balance and check is important for me.
You've also mentioned previously that historically the adoption of women in strategic positions, especially within the ANC, is slow. But I've seen that, you know, as women in the ANC, it seems as if women in the ANC propel men. Why is that?
Look, why is it the responsibility of women only to elect women? It's not. So it's not only, because when we talk about a gender issue, gender mainstreaming and response to gender, I don't want to be just voted on by women. I want the men in the ANC to vote for me as well. So it's a balanced, that they must believe, not because I'm only a woman, they must believe that I'm capable and I can lead. So it's that balance. That's why I would want to see both women and men in the ANC voting for a woman, not only Mmamoloko, but all other women who are standing. The criteria is that, yes, we want to see 50% in the top 6. That, I think it must be a non-negotiable. I hope we can agree at conference that, comrades, it's a non-negotiable. And the reason why I say that is not only about gender. It's for society to believe that, and because majority of women as well are people in the country are women, that their voice is being heard. There are people who represents their voice. That's the important thing. You'd understand on the continent, I mean, just recently, you would have seen the outcome of Tikre in China. And you'd seen Mampumzile has been part of the negotiation. This is one of the oldest fights on the continent, that when disputes and conflict are resolved, women are not brought on the table to be part of the solution. And that's why some of us are very excited to see a good results that involves a negotiation and a panel that had women as part of the discussion, because they bear the brunt of the conflicts, even similarly in society. One of the reasons I always advocate to say we need to see women, because when we look for the women in private sector, they start saying, but you are saying your leader is in society. You don't have women in your own organization that are in positions of power, because it's the voice. These are the positions where decisions are being made, are being taken, and that women can't be left without being part of those.
We're just a month away from the elective conference in Nasrec, and like I said earlier on, it's been dubbed as a watershed conference. Do you think that the voices of the branches this time around will guide this election, but most importantly, the policies of the party? Look,
we're not yet 100% there. You'd remember that when you look at the rules today, they're different compared to previously, do not encourage slates. They're trying to ensure that there's a voice of branches. Nominations are being done and branches themselves will nominate and put in a box which goes to the Electoral Commission. So it's one of those that, for example, right now as we speak, it's an encouragement that allows for branches to start having the voice. But it's not yet 100% concrete, because you still have branches where they will tell you that, we nominated you and then we were called by leaders intimidating us, saying, why are you nominating Mmamoloko, for example, in other parts of the world? Or we were called to say, no, we must change our mind. Or even before, they'll be called, no, don't nominate that way, don't nominate. So you have those that are defiant to say, no, but the rules are saying this is what. And then you have those who are scared of leadership, So you still find those trends. But I think it's not yet perfect. Going forward, we should be able to. And I was saying to myself the other time, we're having a conversation with some of the comrades. I said, one of the things that we'll have to do in the future, now it's past, is the transparency of the electoral system. Where immediately when a branch is nominated, maybe there must be a dashboard that everybody can see that, okay, branch Ward 14, Muloto Tambani in Soweto, immediately when they finish to nominate, everybody can see that this is how they've nominated. And that will be important going forward to enhance the strength and the power of branches, but to ensure we deal with what we currently want to deal with, manipulation of the electoral system.
Are you not concerned about vote buying?
I am concerned, I must say. Obviously, because I don't come from a background with money, so I will be concerned. And I don't believe in buying in terms of that. And especially what comforts me is the fact that the rules tries to deal with this matter, where they prescribe what can be done and what can be done. For example, if the branch sits, you are not allowed to have, you must have, if you have an event, for example, they say, let's say I'm going somewhere and then people are gathering, they say you must have fruits, water, minimum. You are not allowed to have T-shirts, you can't buy T-shirts, you can have billboards. So those things are not allowed. You are not allowed when delegates come to conference to transport them, and we'll be watching and we'll lodge disputes and disqualify candidates. So I hope all of us comply and stick to that. So for me, while I still have this, because I can't live in illusion that it can happen, I'm hoping that the rules are implemented effectively. The rules are implemented to the latter, to protect many and make sure that we protect the integrity of the conference and its process.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about other national issues, especially the issue of load shedding. I mean, it's cost our economy billions of rands, also cost, the lives and livelihoods of people, You were the Minister of Energy at some point. When you were in that portfolio, what could you have done differently, or rather, what did you do to possibly avoid such a situation? Because I think South Africans are very tight, Minister. We've been hearing this rhetoric over and over again that, yes, government is working, yes, load shedding will be a thing of the past, but when it's really costing us and our economy so much?
Yeah, I think first thing for me there, I could have pushed for the nuclear, but with lesser megawatts. And the process itself, I stayed lesser time, because remember, in terms of new build plans, they take longer. So that would have been a policy point, not on the implementation, because remember, the separation between energy and DPE would be that difference. So from a policy point of view, remember when I came in, there was that controversy around the nuclear build plant, which made it difficult for us to even finalize it at that time, because there was allegations of corruption and all those things. But I do believe nuclear plant, if it was built at that time, it would have helped. Remember, the build time, lead time of implementing projects, the time you decide on projects and implementing them would take long. The issue of base load remains a concern. Yes, we are expanding on renewables, which is good. to be able to move into clean energy space. And I believe in terms of opportunities, I continue to encourage more people, entrepreneurs, to look at the space to try and see what is it that we can do. Maybe even issues around manufacturing of this in the country, but currently the challenge is around the battery to be able to store. Part of what we even had done that time, we signed an agreement with 3 countries in terms of the transmission lines, Mozisa. It was South Africa, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe in terms of being able to share on electricity. It's that issues around implementation. We started the engagement on the review of the cost. I don't know if you remember. I went out to say the current cost which we were paying at that time of between, because I found between the 1, 2 and 3 on the renewables having been implemented. And we started a conversation to say, but the costs are too high. Can we revise the price? I remember we were talking about even 77 cents at that time. So unfortunately, I think the week I was meant to meet with the sector on changing the price, we were going to sign the agreement. It's the week I was reshuffled out of energy. So it's those things that at that time we understood that there was an issue. Similarly, in terms of even within the petroleum space and gas, because we're looking at that to expand. I mean, during the time there, we had 2 gas plants being opened in Saldanha Bay, which I was part of, and we wanted to expand that in working. I went to Guha as part of the work that we wanted to encourage export or import of gas so that we can be able to expand and close the gap. So it's those things. I think for me, it's that there's been quite a lot of vision that I would have, but because as well the time we spent was not too long. But also I think the impact we made, I mean, I still find people talking about it, which continues. I do agree that the impact on load shedding on just ordinary lives is too much. And I make an example every time to, maybe because I'm a mother, to women, working women, where when you come back from work, you want to cook for your children, you help them with homework, it's load shedding. It starts at 6, it's going to come back at 9. Or 10 o'clock. You are supposed to be sleeping because you are tired, you've been working throughout the day, and you're trying to find, and majority of households can afford alternative energy to be able to put solar panels, to put generators. So you'd rely on basic, sometimes you'd have a gas, it's expensive as well, weekly, so it's added cost to a household, which ordinarily, so you pay electricity, then you must buy gas to be able to cook or perhaps even heat your own home. Similarly to small businesses. A small B&B, when they run, majority of them would not be able to buy these generators to put solar panels. And that's why some of them would look at the schedule before they can even take clients, or even request clients to wake up early so that they can have breakfast before load shedding starts. It's an inconvenience for businesses. It's killing of small businesses. So yes, I do note that people are saying they're tired of the rhetoric, but we're hoping that this can be a thing of the past and therefore it can be responded. Our contribution in human settlement, for example, what we want to do, I said to the team, and we discussed it at MINMEC last week, that let's review our specs of building these houses. One, it will help in terms of alternative energy, but it will also help with the municipality because these are indigent people. So the bills that sometimes they end up with, that they are owing municipality when they don't end, they end below 3,000. Some of them are senior citizens earning 1,500 from government. Others are just living on the grants of the children. So we are reviewing aspect to start, hopefully if we can finalize the process so that by the 1st of April 2023, when we build an RDP house, we have a solar panel on top. And those are some of the intervention and our contribution as human settlement to dealing with issues of energy, but also alleviating the pain of those that are vulnerable in society.
Okay, Minister, just lastly, my last question. 2024 is around the corner. I think this is nothing new to you. People are saying they are tired of the ANC government. They want to vote them out of power. What would you say to a person who's watching you from Alexandra, Goklamini, or Thabiso Paki, who's unemployed? They were saying, I'm tired. The ANC has been in government for over 25 years, but still there's no change. Why should the ordinary person actually vote for you?
Look, firstly, let me start by saying, while I acknowledge that there are a number of areas that we've been weak at, but there are areas that we have been able to implement. My issue starting with that, from us who are deployed, to be able to go to communities and do what we're expected to do, service delivery. Municipalities, our own comrades who are in municipalities, do basic things, clean the towns, take the rubbish out, and make sure that we close the potholes. These are an irritation to our communities. We are starting to see some of them listening and doing that. I was happy to see the pictures, for example, of Mafikeng, the mayor, young man there, doing wonderful job, taking pictures and showing them on social media. You understand, when we were there for IMPI, so this is one of the issues that society raised. Now, that's part of the issue. My responsibility as well, where we are failing, we are not able to, for example, to deliver on, we must go back to the community and explain where the challenges are and why the gap exists and how we are going to resolve that. And that's very important. Now, many people would say it's time for the ANC to be voted out of power. And I don't think so. We have our weaknesses. We have good policies. That's why we are saying we want to implement them. But that's why the infusion of a younger generation gives hope. These are people who are agile, who are risk takers, are not scared to say we can take risk and be able to implement. Lessons learned out of the past is for us to also, because major part of why we were also not voted in is what people were feeling that instead of us providing solutions or services, we were stealing the money. And that's why the implementation of the Zondo Commission report remains important as part of saying, yes, there might have been things that have been done wrong, which we should have fixed. We shouldn't have collapsed ESCOM where money was taken. We should have provided water in Kiani where we promised and money is gone. But these people are going to pay, and there are consequences for it. And that's why, as the organization and cabinet, we've said we support the report. We might have issues there and there on specific areas where we feel that, for example, these are constitutional obligation. But when it comes to service delivery where money has been misappropriated, we are standing firm to say consequences shall be done. And this is the assurance we are giving to South Africans, that we are on the path of renewal, we are on the path of correction. And many of us are standing up. And that's the reason why we are standing up to contest in this leadership, so that they can more have confidence in us to say, these are the people who work, these are the people who comes to communities, they don't sit in Pretoria. We crisscross the country, across, going to even the most remote areas where people don't expect us to be. We get there, we listen to them, we find lasting solutions. And part of what I want to do here is even to fast track some of the issues of intervention. And I hope South Africans as well, part of what we want to do is alternative building technologies, because it will give us an opportunity to build better, faster. And that will assist us to respond to many people who are looking for housing needs. And I hope as we do this work, for example, even on our own portfolios, but also the leadership that is elected will give confidence to 2024 that things are no longer the same, and ANC has listened to what they have said.
Okay, Minister, thank you so much for your time. Of course, we will catch up with you as time gets closer to the Nasdaq elective conference. That was Minister Mmamoloko Kubayi. We're just talking about a number of issues. Of course, she's been endorsed to be the deputy president of the ANC. And of course, this SABC News, our politics team, we have started interviewing various candidates for those top 6 positions. This is not the last of it. Of course, my colleague Umzwandile Mbeje will be interviewing one of the ANC's candidates on Sunday. With that said, thank you so much for tuning into this interview. It's back to you in studio.
Thanks a lot, Natasha. Very interesting conversation there. Remember, as tradition, the deputy president of the African National Congress goes on to be the deputy president of the country. Well, that's if you make that decision, South Africans, in the upcoming election. So let us know at the agenda_SABC what you think of that conversation, and if you're convinced that Mmamoloko Kubayi could possibly be your next deputy president.